People always said Daniel and I were the kind of couple that made marriage look easy. We laughed too loudly at parties, finished each other's sentences, and held hands long after most couples stopped bothering. My sister Lila adored him. She used to joke that if I ever left him, she'd take him for herself. Back then, it was just that, a joke. We were close enough to laugh about anything. She was my baby sister, the one who borrowed my clothes, my lip gloss, sometimes even my excuses. We were two halves of a shared childhood, bound by the same secrets and scars. But time has a way of testing even the sweetest pictures. At first, it was small things. Daniel forgetting to kiss me goodnight, Lila skipping Sunday dinners. She'd call with vague excuses, voice jittery, as if she was reading from a script. He'd shrug it off, say she was busy. I wanted to believe that. I needed to. One evening, I found Daniel sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. When I asked what was wrong, he said, "Just tired." But the pause before that, too long, too deliberate, lodged itself in my mind. Then came the smell. Perfume that wasn't mine on his jacket. Not the cheap, sharp scent of strangers, but the soft floral one Lila wore. Rose dust, she called it. I remember her showing it to me once, saying it made her feel like spring. I told myself I was imagining things. After all, Daniel and Lila had always been close. He'd helped her move into her apartment, given her advice about her job. He treated her like family, my family. I told myself it was beautiful, how they cared for each other. I told myself a lot of things. The morning everything shifted. The sun was white and merciless. I'd just come from the doctor's. Nothing serious, just a routine checkup. I was tired, thinking about dinner, when traffic slowed near Lila's street. That's when I saw it, Daniel's car, parked neatly in front of her house. At first my brain tried to make sense of it. Maybe he was visiting her. Maybe she needed help with something. But then my eyes caught it, the baby seat. Bright blue with tiny giraffes printed on the straps. We didn't have a baby. We'd stopped trying years ago after the last miscarriage. For a long second, the world tilted. The air felt thick like I was breathing through wool. My hand tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. I stared at that baby seat, trying to imagine another reason it might be there. None came. I didn't knock on her door. I didn't call him. I just sat there, engine humming, watching the curtains twitch. Someone was moving inside. A shadow crossed the window, tall, broad-shouldered. I knew that shape like I knew my own heartbeat. When I finally drove away, my vision blurred at the edges. The road shimmered, my pulse roaring in my ears. But I didn't cry, not then. Tears felt too small for what was rising inside me, something heavier, colder, like a tide turning. That evening, I cooked dinner like nothing had happened. Chicken stew, his favorite. Lila called to say she might stop by later. I said, "Of course," smiling into the phone like my face wasn't cracking. When Daniel came home, I watched him closely. He kissed my cheek, said, "Smells amazing," and went to wash up. His hands were trembling. At dinner, I studied them both. Daniel across the table, Lila beside me, smiling too much, eyes darting everywhere but mine. I poured wine, asked harmless questions, laughed at jokes that weren't funny. Every sound in the room felt amplified. The scrape of forks, the clink of glass, the hollow rhythm of false comfort. I remember watching her tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, the same way I used to when I was nervous. Daniel reached across the table to pass her bread. Their fingers brushed, and both of them froze, just a second too long. That's when I knew. I smiled and refilled their glasses. If they noticed my hands shaking, they said nothing. Lila left early, claiming she had a long day tomorrow. Daniel watched her go, his eyes following her to the door. After he went to bed, I stood in the kitchen for a long time, staring at our reflection in the dark window. 2 plates still on the table, her lipstick on one of the glasses. I thought about all the things I could say, all the ways I could break the silence. But words, I realized, were too soft for betrayal like this. So I chose silence. Not the kind that hides. The kind that listens. That sharpens. That plans. In bed? Daniel mumbled in his sleep, her name slurring out between breaths. I didn't wake him. I turned toward the wall and let the darkness swallow the sound. The next morning, I packed his lunch, kissed his cheek, and watched him drive away in that same car. The baby seat was gone now, replaced by shadows I couldn't unsee. That was the moment I stopped being the woman who trusted blindly. I became the woman who watches, who waits. Because sometimes, the most dangerous revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, and I had decided I didn't need proof that night. My silence would be my weapon. Silence changes how rooms sound. After that dinner, the refrigerator's hum became a metronome for my patience, the clock a judge. I didn't accuse. I observed. Daniel started carrying cash. He suddenly had reasons to pass my sister's street. His shirts came home smelling faintly of talc and baby lotion. I told myself forgiving stories, but they dissolved. I kept a ledger, not on paper but in bone. Tuesday, $1,200 left our joint account. Wednesday, Lila texted a selfie with a new blender from both of you. Both of who? Thursday, a florist confirmed peonies to her address. Daniel claimed his boss's wife was ill. The lie scraped past his teeth. At home, I watched the small things. A pale foundation smear not my shade. Keys that vanished then reappeared. A new lock on his phone. Security policy, he said. Meanwhile, my own security, the faith I had in us, frayed like cloth. At night, I practiced stillness. The phone buzzed under his pillow, soft as a moth. He turned away, breathed, typed. I memorized the cadence of his guilt. He thought he spared me from noise. He didn't see that mercy, applied to lies, is another cruelty. When I visited Lila, surprise flashed where ease used to live. You should have called, she said, eyes too bright. I noticed the new kettle, the new rug, the framed meadow. Each crinkle of plastic sounded like a receipt. We made tea and talked about nothing. She kept touching her abdomen, an unconscious sweep. I saw it and did not see it. On my way out, I carried her trash, and there it was, a peach reminder card, folded once, hurriedly stuffed. Prenatal care, Tuesday at 10, dated months before the baby seat. A small stamp marked time like thunder. I didn't knock again. I let the card ride in the passenger seat like a witness I hadn't invited. I drove without the radio, and the silence said, "Now you know." Grief arrived in measured waves. I cooked dinners that tasted like memory, smiled for neighbors, paid our bills. In the back office, I opened our banking app and traced Daniel's generosity. Rent labeled emergency, transfers as car repairs. The pattern assembled itself. Still, I waited for something that ended argument before it began. It came by accident. Daniel asked me to pick up his suit. In the inside pocket, the attendant had slipped an envelope of items found. I opened it in the car. A receipt from a private lab slid into my hand, tucked with a card. Paternity testing. Client, Daniel M. Date, 8 weeks prior. Status, processed. The world narrowed to a point. The baby seat wasn't a borrowed convenience. It cradled a decision he made without me, with her. Confrontation didn't happen in a storm of plates. It happened in the kitchen under a single bulb, stew simmering. Daniel loosened his tie, kissed the air near my cheek. I set the envelope on the counter like a glass I was done holding. "What's this?" he asked too quickly. Something you already understand, I said. He opened it. His mouth forgot how to pretend. It's not, he began, then tried another door. I can explain. I'd rather you didn't. I kept my voice low. Explanations are for accidents. This is a map. You followed it. It was a mistake. Which part? I asked. The months of cash? The appointments? Or teaching me to sleep beside a stranger? I never meant to hurt you. Intention is the cheapest currency, I said. We listened to the stew whisper. Then I said, call her. He stared. Now? Now, he dialed. Lila's hello entered the room like wind. I took the phone. It's me, I said. Come over. She arrived with her sweater inside out. The moment she saw the envelope, her face folded. I'm sorry, she whispered. And then it poured out. How it began after moving, how comfort pooled where my marriage had gone thirsty, how fear became a schedule. She cried without wiping her face, tears that cleaned nothing. I waited for the scream that would cauterize me. It never came. You could have told me, I said. Before it became a crib, Daniel muttered apologies. Lila asked for forgiveness with her whole body, small again. I understood that forgiveness and permission are cousins I will never house. I went to the bedroom, pulled 2 suitcases from under the bed, and began to pack. Not frantic. Fold, stack, zip. Jeans that move, shoes that carry me, the photo of my mother and me at the county fair. In the bathroom, I chose my own toothbrush like a small flag. Daniel followed, pleading. Stay. We can fix it. Therapy. I'll end it. It's already ended, I said. You just didn't tell the people inside it. He reached for my arm and let go when I looked at his hand. Lila hovered in the doorway, whispering my name. I brushed past them, the suitcases rolling. In the kitchen, I turned off the stew. Still warm, still good, just not for us. On the porch, the night air tasted clean. The world beyond the yard felt uncarved. Where will you go? He asked. Somewhere honest, I said. I'll start there. I placed the bags in the trunk that once carried beach chairs and picnic baskets. I slid into the driver's seat. I didn't slam the door or peel away. I pulled out slowly, tires whispering against the curb, and watched the house recede, the kitchen light, the open door, 2 figures framed by a life they'd broken. I didn't look back. I moved out in silence, and the silence did not follow me. It stayed with them, heavy as a crib in a room that shouldn't exist. Ahead, a horizon waited without judgment. I pressed the accelerator and steered toward the part of the story where I choose myself next. Tomorrow I would find a place, a lawyer, and the strength to begin again on my own terms. 6 months. That's how long it's been since I packed my life into 2 suitcases and left the house that once called itself home. I remember the first night in my new apartment. The echo of emptiness. The way the walls seemed too honest. I slept on the floor, the boxes still sealed. And for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of silence. It no longer meant secrets. It meant peace. My name was the only one on the lease. That detail mattered more than I expected. Seeing it written in ink felt like breathing for the first time after being underwater too long. I bought secondhand furniture, painted the walls ivory, and filled the space with sunlight instead of apologies. Daniel called it first. Long, pitiful messages about therapy and forgiveness. I listened once, then deleted every number that reminded me of him. I didn't block him. I wanted him to hear the sound of his own guilt bouncing off unanswered calls. Let him sit in the quiet he once gave me. As for Lila, she tried to write. Pages and pages of explanations that began with, I never meant, and ended with, please understand. I didn't. Not because I couldn't, but because I'd outgrown the version of myself that made excuses for other people's cruelty. I mailed back her letters, unopened, tied neatly with a red ribbon. A full stop in silk. Word got around, as it always does. Not because I told anyone, but because lies have short legs and long echoes. Daniel's colleagues stopped inviting him to family dinners. His parents avoided my name, which was fine. I'd already stopped answering to it. The house he fought to keep became a museum of shame. I heard that Lila moved in, then out again. Some nights, neighbors said they argued so loud the walls shook. I didn't smile when I heard that, but I didn't cry either. Justice doesn't always arrive wearing a judge's robe. Sometimes it comes disguised as consequence. I learned to fill my mornings with rituals that belonged only to me. Coffee in a chipped mug. A walk around the park. Fresh flowers every Sunday because I didn't need a reason to be surrounded by beauty anymore. The florist learned my name. He said I had sunlight eyes. I laughed. It startled me, the sound of it. It had been so long since laughter didn't feel borrowed. I took a job at a local design firm. Nothing glamorous but steady, mine. My first paycheck felt like a heartbeat. I framed the stub just to remember that independence also has a texture. The rough, sweet grain of earned peace. Healing, I learned, doesn't arrive with fanfare. It sneaks in through open windows and clean sheets. It comes with the first night you don't check your phone, the first morning you wake without rehearsing a confrontation. Some days the memories sting like fresh cuts. Other days, they feel like scars, proof that I survived something meant to break me. One evening, months after, I saw Daniel again. I was leaving the grocery store when I spotted him by the parking lot, thinner, eyes duller. He hesitated when he saw me, as if unsure whether to speak or vanish. I nodded once, a silent acknowledgement of what used to be, and kept walking. He didn't follow. Maybe he understood that some silences are permanent. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat by the window. The city below was alive. Cars passing, laughter echoing from the street. For the first time, I didn't feel invisible inside my own life. Lila's name still surfaces sometimes, usually when I see sisters walking together, their arms linked, their trust effortless. I don't wish her pain, but I do wish her honesty. Betrayal, I've learned, doesn't just wound, it teaches. It strips you down to your truest self. People ask if I've forgiven them. I tell them forgiveness isn't about freeing the guilty. It's how I stopped bleeding. I forgave to reclaim my peace, not to reopen the door. Last week I bought a car. Not brand new, but mine. As I adjusted the rearview mirror, I caught my reflection, steady, unflinching. On the passenger seat sat a small bouquet of yellow roses, bright and unapologetic. Driving home, I stopped at a red light, and for a split second, a flash of memory returned. Daniel's car, the baby seat the day my world cracked open, but instead of pain, I felt gratitude. That moment was the end of one life and the quiet beginning of another. I whispered to myself, that baby seat? It wasn't ours, but the freedom that followed, that was mine. When betrayal lives under your roof, silence can be sharper than revenge. I didn't destroy them publicly. I let truth do its work. Guilt is a house with no windows. Eventually, the air runs out. Now I sleep diagonally across my bed. I cook for one and set the table anyway. I dance while waiting for the kettle to boil. I have learned that peace doesn't come from justice. It comes from release. So if you're listening to this, wondering whether to confront or disappear, remember this. Sometimes walking away is the loudest sound you'll ever make. What would you do if your sister and husband betrayed you? Scream or disappear quietly? Because sometimes healing is the best revenge. Subscribe for more real-life stories of betrayal, power, and redemption, where silence doesn't mean weakness. It means the storm has finally passed.